Okay, final take. Let's do this again. Last time I tried this, the light died on me, and then before that, there were other problems. But okay, quick little update to go into all of the things I'm working on, what I should be working on, what I have been sidetracked by. For starters, as you know, I mentioned in a previous video that I am working on a high score list for Line Maze. I got sidetracked and started researching doing a sound library for it. It's just going to be a little header with some embedded 8-bit samples, low bit rate. They're going to be your most basic sounds, blips and bleeps and buzzes and whatever, just enough to add some sound to the game. And I don't want to have a bunch of sound samples distributed with the game. I want them embedded, so file size should be small. So the Chatterbox project is just going to basically be this collection of simple sounds that can be called on for applications like maze games and maybe a little Space Invaders clone that could have some pew pews and some boom booms and that kind of stuff. So something I got sidetracked by, and it's been taking up a little bit of my time, research and actual development. So I'll have some news for that upcoming soon. Line Maze is getting real close to being distributed. I will probably put it up I said it would be up already, but I'm kind of one of them people that I see something I don't like about it, and I don't want the world to see what I don't like about it. So, not trying to be like a perfectionist, but kind of acting like a perfectionist here. Which is funny considering the type of game is such a simple retro style that perfectionism in something like this almost seems overkill. But yeah, rest assured, here soon, the project will be released with Source, so stay tuned for that. I am working on a tile layer. The tile layer is going to basically be your main playfield for platform style games, shooter style games. All the details are still being worked out. I get to working on it and I decide that the method I'm using is not really the direction I want to take it. And nothing I do with this project is set in stone, so everything is subject to change. As I learned long ago, we learn by doing, and sometimes we learn what not to do by doing what we do and realizing that's not what you should have done. So this project is not on any kind of time frame. I don't have any kind of roadmap. I don't have any kind of development cycle laid out. I'm just kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks, and if it falls off, I'll pick it up and examine it and maybe sniff at it and see, hey, why is this rotten, or what can I do to make it better. I do recommend anyone who's doing what I'm doing, which is basically experimenting with ideas and learning from them, to definitely branch out beyond your own work. I've been playing with Godot. I like Godot. I might even do some projects with Godot eventually. But I feel like Godot is kind of not aligned with my goals. What I do think is very well aligned with my goals is Raylib, which I rely on pretty heavily for what I'm doing right now. Now, in the future, I would like to get away from relying on Raylib, but I find it so convenient, and it does make developing between multiple systems very easy. If you're developing something on Windows, Linux, and Mac, Raylib is very useful because it does take some of the work out of trying to do the same thing on 3 different systems. Eventually, I will probably port my engine over to support every system native, but in the meantime, it's a great start. It's very similar to what SDL provides, but it is a header-only library. Now, you do have to install somewhere on your build system the full Raylib headers and the library itself, but unlike SDL, it is compiled into your program. You don't distribute any dependencies with it, no DLLs or no lib files. It's just statically linked to your project, so that is nice. As anyone who's been following me for any amount of time knows, I like my projects to be self-contained. I don't like external files dangling off to the edge. I don't want a executable with an assets folder with it. The only other file I think that a small program like mine should have is maybe a save file stored in the user's home directory, maybe in a game saves folder or some other similar folder that may be set aside. I like the idea of a person downloading a game, distributing it in a single zip file or just as the executable itself, them being able to drag it anywhere on their hard drive they want and just running it and having the whole game. And then when they're done and tired of playing with the simple little whatever it is, dragging it in their trash and getting rid of it. Nothing left behind except for maybe a little small save file that's, really not taking up any hard drive space at all. And if they really want to get rid of it, they can go find it and delete it as well. Unlike a lot of modern day applications, which you have to run an installer in and then they puke files up all over your hard drive and you don't know where they're all at, and they may not be taking up any space of any significant amount, but still over time your hard drive gets cluttered with the remnants of all the different programs you've had installed, and it's just a big old pain. And I think for small indie games, having it self-contained the way that I prefer to have them self-contained is just a lot more clean. I don't like seeing an indie application and you open it up and it has the executable and 200 DLLs and a bunch of different files that don't really have any kind of recognizable file type and a bunch of folders with cryptic garbage in them, and you don't know what all this shit does. And, for a simple indie game, that really, to me, it looks sloppy. Maybe most people don't care. As long as the actual, link to execute the program, the start menu item that they can click on and run the game's all they care about. And when they want to get rid of it, they can go to their programs and their settings and uninstall it and assume the uninstaller is going to remove everything associated with that program, and it probably will, but you never know. And I just feel that that's just so sloppy, and we've become accustomed to that being the norm these days, that nobody thinks anything of it. I think something of it, and I just don't like it. But hey, to each their own. Not everyone agrees with me. Not everyone is aligned with my philosophies, and that's fine. If you don't feel that the stuff that I'm doing is appropriate, there are plenty of game engines out there. There's plenty of other projects you can pay attention to. I think there are plenty of people out there who do agree with me, though. I think there's a lot of people who would like to have a simple framework that they can build a very basic game with just to cut their teeth on game development, or even maybe to, take their very retro game idea and bring it to life without relying on something as heavy as Unity or Unreal, which are overkill for basic indie games. Not everyone that gets into indie game development is going to produce a super stellar game. Take Stardew Valley as an example. Not everyone's going to do that. Some people just want to recreate a classic that they played as a child, or maybe they have this idea that they want to prototype and they don't have the means and abilities to create a full implementation of it, but there's some gaming mechanic that they want to experiment with and then bring it to life, see how it looks and plays and feels, and if it's fun, maybe then explore more advanced ways in bringing it to a broader audience. Prototyping, exploring ideas, quick turnaround on small retro ideas, that's where I'm kind of focusing my project. And this is probably not going to be everyone's forte. It's not going to be everyone's flavor. But there's probably plenty of people out there who are looking for something exactly like what I'm doing. And it is my hope that in time, as this project grows and becomes fleshed out into something much bigger, that there will be people who can benefit from it. And even if they don't use it, maybe they can download the code and say, hey, this is how he did that. Or they can look at the code and say, hey, there's a better way to do this. Because I've done that recently. I've seen things where people were doing some stuff and I thought, that's a really sloppy way to do that. I'm not saying that I'm the best at anything, but I do know what works and what don't work because I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. And believe me, when it comes to shit that don't work, I am a pro. And what I'm working on right now, I think, is not just about getting a framework out there that I can develop games with, but it's also going to teach me more about game development. And if other people can benefit from that, great. So if anyone has any ideas, if they want to collaborate or talk about this or just download it and play with it, hey, that's what I'm here for. My Patreon page is available for anybody to, go download what I've worked on. You don't have to sign up for it. Everything is free to the public. Patreon members do get the material a week before everybody else, but let's face it, stuff like this, you can wait a week for it if you really want it. Now, in other news, other things I've been working on, like the 3-color red, green, blue, triple layer colorways, the Conway's Game of Life, I'm basically done with that, and the source code partially available right now. I'm going to make the full source code available here soon with the most recent executable, but that's done. I'm no longer working on that. The bitmap editor, Edibima, it is basically done. I mean, it is not great. It is simply a editor to let you edit the character set that the text layer uses. Maybe you don't like my default character set that comes with text layer. You are free to edit it. If you want to take the text layer and embed that in your retro-styled game and make your own typeface for it and compile it all and not have to rely on the system fonts or TrueType fonts or whatever, and you don't want to use the typeset that I created, Edibima will create a character bitmap header that you can include in your project, and when you compile text layer into your project, whether a game or toy or whatever, your typeface will be embedded in your program. So even if you compile it for Windows, Mac, and Linux, you won't have to rely on TrueType fonts. You won't have to rely on anything like that. It'll be part of your program. You won't have to distribute your font with your program. Your program will have it embedded. This is a very useful tool for people who want to do small little toys that have, text in them, and they want to design their own typeface. Or, and this is the real benefit of it, there are 255 characters in the text layer. So you don't have to use it to design like glyphs for writing. You can make simple graphics and print the graphics to the screen. Think old Commodore Petsky or ANSI graphics. If your application just needs a square frame around some part of the program, you could design the corners and the lines in Edibima and print that little box. And hey, if you want to make a little disk save icon, maybe take a few tiles, 9 block 3x3 square, and to draw a little floppy disk and print that up on the screen. So the cool thing about this is, with 255 bitmaps that are 16 by 16 by 3 color, you have a lot of flexibility there. You don't have to use it just to print text. You can use it to print graphics. Now, that is not what Edibima was designed for. The text layer is a debugging tool. It is a statistics printing tool, but that doesn't mean you can't use it to do more application-focused things. The text layer on my line maze game is actually done with the text layer. The text overlay that gives the control output for the Conway's Game of Life that I did uses the text layer. Now, the tile layers that I'm designing are going to be what I use primarily for my game's text, but that's going to be thought of more as like a second version. Whereas text layer was kind of like a trial run just to get some text on the screen, tile layer is going to be a more advanced implementation of essentially the same thing, only it's not going to be limited to 16 by 16 by 3 colors. So the tile layer is going to be, well, I haven't really decided yet, but it's probably going to be a flexible tile size, probably between 16 and 64, between 16 and 64. And I'm not going to have such a small limit on the tiles, but I think every tile is going to be 16 colors. That's another thing I've started doing, is researching fragment shaders. I'm going to write a shader that will basically read the colors out of a small index, and the tiles will be 16 colors, and you will be able to choose a palette per tile. And the idea being that when you draw your playfield, you lay your tiles out. When you lay your tiles out, the fragment shader is going to be able to say, hey, this tile has 16 different indexes in it, and we can choose one of several different 16 color palettes. So every tile can be any of the 16 colors that are available in any of the palettes. And I'm going to design my palettes off of retro systems, the Genesis palette, the TurboGrafx palette, Super Nintendo, Neo Geo, Amiga, Commodore, CGA, EGA, the old school look. That isn't to say that someone couldn't use this layer to do 24-bit color graphics, red, green, and blue with an alpha channel. I mean, if you wanted to do modern graphics with it, you definitely could. I'm really kind of focusing more on a retro look with this engine, but that isn't meaning that anything developed with this engine is going to be limited to that. That's just going to be the focus. Of course, I'm going to assume anyone who's interested in this engine is also interested in doing retro games. So I don't feel like these limiting factors are going to prohibit anyone from using the engine for whatever project they're choosing to use it for. If, in the unlikely event that they choose to use this engine and they've got more advanced ideas, then of course it's free and open source. They can make changes all they want. But I'm going to assume anybody with more advanced ideas is probably using something other than this engine. Because for right now, you can't even call it an engine. It's just like this idea that I'm experimenting with. But also, there are great engines out there. Godot, Game Maker. If you already have an idea for a game and you're looking to do it right now, don't look at Fuselage, because Fuselage is a long-term project. It is a experiment. It is a collection of ideas that will come and go. Nothing is set in stone. Things will evolve. Things will change. But that doesn't mean that other people who are learning to program or wanting to make a game engine can't benefit from it. If you have ideas and maybe you just need to experiment or prototype, I encourage you to download my source and take a look. It may inspire you to do something different. You may learn from it, or you may learn what not to do, because like I said, when it comes to what not to do, I am a highly trained professional in up. So if you want to learn what doesn't work, hey, just keep following me. You'll probably find lots of things that don't work. But hopefully together we will find things that do work. And what I can tell you right now is I'm not going to stop doing this. I'm not going to let not knowing what I'm doing stop me from doing it. So stay tuned. We'll see where this goes. And hopefully within, this lifetime sometime, somebody somewhere will benefit from this project, even if that person is only me. Until then, have fun, don't get killed, play more games, drink more beer, eat more sausage. See ya.